This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hey guys, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series. And today we got our names correct at the beginning, which is pretty hard for us sometimes. But we are going to be talking about, what are we going to talk about today, Ahmad?
Dealing with fear, guilt, shame and loneliness for men. I don't know why I just sounded like Siri. Dealing with fear, guilt, shame and loneliness for men.
Yeah, so before we tap into that, we're just going to talk about who we are. We are a couple of 30-something ex-dating coaches, done a fuck ton of self-development and dealing with our own fears, upsets and sadnesses through life, and come out the other end feeling like people who can just about deal with life a bit better. So we felt like we'd create a podcast where we would share some of our dating knowledge and what we've kind of gained from living and traveling and existing on this beautiful little earth for a little while. Yeah,
and this is actually a really hot topic for us because this is pretty much what started this whole podcast. Is sorry about that, I got a bit of a throat thing going on, but it is about teaching men how to deal with their emotions or become more okay with their emotions. I'm not really finding the best way to express that right now, but essentially
more powerful
comfort, power. Yeah. But the idea behind it, and we're going to go into this on this episode, is we do find a lot of us men struggle to express how we're really feeling. There's a lot of there is a lot of guilt around the guilt, a lot of the shame around the shame and the fear around the fear. It's a lot of.
We should make some t-shirts.
Yeah, that would be
shame about the shame.
Yes, if you buy them, we will make them.
Get in touch.
Yeah, get in touch. Put your orders in now, and then we'll start making the t-shirts. Yeah, so actually, this is for me personally as well, because as much as we love talking about dating, and we have a whole expanse of knowledge on dating, really, helping men, be more courageous men, be more vulnerable men, is a huge part of what we're up to here. And I was actually saying this to David in the preamble. At the end of the day, like, in my own life and in David's life, what is obvious about how we operate is for ourselves personally. I don't even have to ask Dave. I know that he focuses on how he can be better, like, and what he can do better. And that doesn't mean he's perfect. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect. It's like, it means we're constantly fucking up. That's what it is. What it means. Yeah. But we're constantly aware, and we become more aware of that, and we'll go more into that.
Yeah, and then the whole kind of constantly being better as well is like, there's a light and a dark side to that. And the light side is that, you strive to improve your life and you try to improve other people's lives around you. But equally, there's that kind of, I feel it myself. One of the emotions I have to deal with is like always feeling like I should be better, But we're going to get into that a bit more. So first topic, first intro thing. What are we going to talk about to start with?
Well, you know what it is because we have it written down, mate. So, so the first thing is, well, let's start from the top, right? So, what is this all about? And the key thing here is, and we see this all the time, and especially outside of our social circles, but in general society, that men are just not talking about how they really think and feel about life, about stuff that's on their mind. It could be, and it's not just, this is a dating podcast, but, everything affects us emotionally, whether it's Brexit, which is a very hot topic, it's happening.
It's affecting me deeply.
It's happening. Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah. But, and then there's like just issues with your family or, just how you woke up in the morning.
Yeah. Your loved ones, issues you might be having at work, friends, dealing with your past trauma, that's something you're dealing with constantly. You might not even realize.
Yeah. And so all of these things, they make up who you are and how you interact with people. And, the sad thing is, and I know this just because I'm alive, is that I can operate through the day and I could have multiple things going on in my mind. But then, and Dave and I were laughing about this earlier because this is how it is in the UK society. I know in different cultures it's slightly different, but when someone says, "Hey, how are you doing?" the default answer is,
hey, I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, boom. And, in the meantime, you could have been like so down about something.
Yeah, I've had it where, people have asked me that question and I've just I kind of got into a bit of a habit a few years ago of not doing that. I'm trying to answer the question a bit more honestly. But, you just answer the question before you thought about it. It's like, when you're young, right? Your parents teach you when you go to other people's houses, don't ask for things.
Yeah.
And when people offer you stuff, say no. Like my mum used to tell me this, right? Yeah. So now, sometimes, I'll go to someone's house and they're like, "Oh, do you want a drink?" And I say no, but I haven't engaged my brain yet, right? And then I sit there thinking, fuck, I'm thirsty. You're like, I shouldn't have said no. And then you kind of have this awkward situation of being like, actually, I'll have that drink. And then you feel a bit stupid. You feel shame and guilt and all sorts of other things.
So yeah, it's a very valid point, and it's like a lot of this stuff does stem from our past, you know, and I have the same thing. Like it's literally the same kind of thought process. Go to someone's house. The first thing is being polite.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay. Yeah. Even if you are thirsty, even if whatever. And so yeah. So actually, just to rewind a little bit here, I just want to say. So what we're gonna do on this podcast is we're gonna talk through, you know, some of the issues that men face with speaking about their emotions, and then we're going to talk about specifically, like we're going to focus on a set of emotions specifically, the more negative emotions that arise in life, and actually they do impact the positive emotions, but we'll go through that, and then also right at the end we're going to go for at least, I think we got about five points here and things that you can do to essentially move forward in your life without having these emotions affect you and impact you in any major way.
Yeah, and just to kind of deal with them and have some practical steps that you can kind of take on today and start doing to kind of help you deal with these emotions.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, like this is something Dave and I really, really feel just heartfelt about, because it's stuff that we've worked on for ourselves, and we feel actually very privileged to be in a position where we can help other people with the same sort of problems that we've dealt with day in, day out. So yeah, going back to what we were saying earlier, then yeah. So the first thing was like, you know, we feel like, you know, Dave was saying about his mum, what she said. I had a similar thing with biscuits and other people's houses, and then
I have biscuits.
And then afterwards, going home, my mum would be like, pull me by the ear, and then be like, "Oh, you were hungry, were you? I'm gonna give you a whole plate of rice. So what you eat?" So that's yeah. So I really recognize that. That's where that shame comes. Yeah. Nowadays, no, I'm not hungry, thanks. Even if I'm hungry, I'm okay.
It's not like that. It's not how you were earlier.
Yeah. Well, I'm free at Dave's house. So you can put that under the umbrella of, you think there's a way it should be, like emotionally. Yeah. This is not just about biscuits and drink. This is just in general in life. We should be positive. We should always be okay.
Yeah, it's like, and I can take this into like a bit more kind of dating relationship world. It's like when you're in a relationship and you have a gripe, you know, you have a bit of a relationship gripe, and your partner's like, is everything okay? And you kind of feel ashamed of your gripe, you know? It might be that, I don't know, she didn't put your drill back in the cupboard that the drill's meant to go back into. And you're a bit annoyed about the drill not being in the place you expect it to be.
All men have drills.
Exactly. All men have drills apart from me, because I'm not a real man. And you have this gripe and you're like, I can't even really say this because I'm ashamed of my gripe. I'm not going to say anything. And it just kind of rolls around inside you because you feel like you have to be a certain way. You can't be complaining about, you know, where they put the drill because it's petty or whatever. But actually, it's totally fine to have that conversation, right? And or even, you know, you're on a date, or no, even better, like, you know, you're speaking to a girl and she just disappears. You know, some men would have it that, or some women would have it that, you know, you can't ask them what's gone on or ask them certain questions about why they've disappeared, because, you know, that's not how you're meant to be. You know, but that might be causing you all sorts of emotional turmoil. Yeah.
So in general, then, when it comes to men, like we're not actually number one, we're not expressing our true emotions and how we're truly feeling. You know, like if you have a drill and your wife or your partner's not putting it away, like Dave said, then but equally, we're not asked how we're really feeling about ourselves and about life, and it's just not encouraged. It's not something that's it's just not encouraged in men to express emotions, to
talk about how you feel. It's not seen as the manly thing to do, I guess. And so traditionally, in that kind of, and I've got the air quotes, you know, traditionally men don't talk about how they feel. They're stoic. And
what we discovered as we were discussing this through is just what's obvious about that is throughout our whole lives, and this is really important to take on board, is that if you feel that you can't express your emotions, you got to understand that this is something that started when you were really young. It's not like you have a problem, and I'm talking to you, the listener, not David. So it's not like you have a specific problem with expressing emotions. Just understand that conditionally from a young age, like already we're taught not to express, just because we're boys at that point, or for many of us still boys, even though we're men. And then what is the result of that? And what we discovered is, like, it leads to just not knowing, you know, what's obvious. You just don't know how to deal with these emotions.
Yeah, you're just not really in touch with how you're feeling. Like, I can really speak from a personal point of view. Like, years ago, sometimes I'd be annoyed about things and I couldn't really understand what was going on. I didn't know I was really annoyed. I'd just be like, I don't feel like speaking. I don't feel like smiling. I don't really understand what's happening here. I'd just be kind of like, a bit grumpy, but without really knowing why I was a bit grumpy. And it took like a lot of kind of personal work to start, uncovering that, I felt bad about feeling a certain way or being angry or being annoyed or even being frustrated. Or even I had a big one about not getting excited about future things. I never forget one of my ex-girlfriends, she'd get so annoyed. She'd be like, never get excited about anything. And my rationale was like, it hasn't happened yet. I don't want to get excited about something that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And it really puts a lid on your self-expression and enjoyment of life, because excitement is an amazing part of life.
Well, what I discovered actually in my personal journey and is that if you can't express yourself on a negative aspect, or I say negative, let's use a different phrase here, a lower vibration, like a low vibe compared to a high vibration emotion like happiness. I think everyone can understand what I mean when I say that.
And by low, you mean like?
So like low, like unhappy, sad, whatever you're in, fear, guilt, shame. And so, those will be associated with low. But if you can't feel that, then you also, oddly enough, like it's like, as a human being, if you're not free to, you don't allow yourself to be free to experience those low vibes, then the high vibes are also kind of just not accessible as well. So then to be happy, you feel awkward being happy.
Yeah.
It feels wrong to be excited about something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Because probably if it doesn't happen, what's going to happen? You're going to go back down to the low ones, which you don't want to experience, right?
Exactly.
And that's a very fascinating thing. And I term that in a phrase or something that I've heard rather, which is as above, so below. And so if you're only willing to go so low, then you can only reach so high. And we're just talking about emotions here.
Yeah.
It's like, and so it's very interesting that you observe that in yourself. But I do want to add something to what you just said. And that's, just looking at our lives, what we're very fortunate is that we have been able to learn these things quite young. Like you, because actually for me, you were always someone who was very emotionally expressed. You would just say if you were sad, and it was an odd thing to hear, because I personally would feel like what we were just saying before. I would feel wrong with saying, "Oh, I'm sad, I'm nervous, I'm this, I'm that." But now, it's different. And yet I see how many men well into their 50s, 60s, they're always putting on the certain face, the facade of how they should be.
Yeah, I feel like, part of what we're doing here in my mission is really to show men how it's okay to be. Like I even do it in my kind of day-to-day life with people that, I know and I work with, and I'll say things about how I feel about myself, and surprise and shock people. I was telling you about an instance the other night where a girl said to me, "Oh, you walk into rooms like you fucking own the room." And I was like, I just walk into the room. I'm actually feeling quite nervous and scared when I walk into a room with people I don't know. I have the same fears and concerns about myself that many of us do. It just doesn't look like that to you,
That's been a huge lesson for me. And I think the penny really dropped only in the last few years, if not more recently. And it's that everyone is having an emotion, is having an experience. You can look at anyone on the street, like wherever you are listening right now, you can look at anyone, and I guarantee you that person is dealing with some sort of like some pain, some guilt, some shame, some anger. Not maybe not right in that moment that you're seeing them, but they have it in their life. Yeah. And when you start to see that, you start to recognize that rather. It's almost like a transformational, enlightened experience when you just realize, everyone is like that. Yeah. And with what Dave said there about that, what that woman said to him, I had this from when I was very young. Again, very shy, but I think because I'd watched a lot of James Bond movies, I knew exactly how to stand and with the arms folded and whatever. And people would look at me and just presume that I was arrogant, stuck up, or offish, and that I wouldn't be very friendly. Yeah. But in fact, no. It's just like Dave said. It's like a shield we put up when we are feeling vulnerable, when we are feeling scared, and then the shield looks like the opposite. And then other people who are feeling vulnerable and scared as well look at us and go, "Oh, can't approach them because they are too confident, and they will judge me for my lack of confidence."
Exactly. So I think we should jump into our next bit.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, we've kind of covered this a little bit, but the main focus of this particular episode is the vibrations, the low vibrations, the emotions that we often push down and don't want to deal with. And as we said, like, dealing with fear, guilt, shame and loneliness for men, but there's also anger, sadness and frustration, all of these sort of emotions which by and large, as men, we hide. We don't, and especially we don't express to women, and even more so amongst other men, where we feel we will be judged.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? That as men, we feel that, you don't want to express, and it's usually, I feel like it comes at some point, you've been teased, you've been bullied or something for expressing some emotion in front of other men and then being chastised for it, It might be as a very young child. It could have come in your teens, it could come from a rejection. You feel rejected by a woman and you say to your friend, I feel a bit upset. That girl don't want to talk to me. And he'll kind of look at you like, oh, what's wrong with you? You're a fucking pussy or something. Like, even those words said, and I can be even responsible for this, is like even saying those words to someone jokingly can leave them feeling like they can't really fully express how they're feeling. So, we can all be responsible in like just being careful how we talk to each other as brothers, and looking after that and kind of keeping a safe space.
Yeah, and equally from the opposite side, it's especially when you're younger. And I think because as you're talking, I'm thinking about, I remember once when I was in primary school and I got talking to this girl at the front of the class. I was sat at the front of the class and I got talking to this girl, and then, primary school, right? Really young. And these other boys were around. They like start taking a piss and start singing that song with the KISSING and all that jazz. I'm not joking. I burst into tears in the fucking classroom. I was just overcome with like just embarrassment. I actually felt like I've been found out or some shit. Like that was my relationship to that moment. And, like even to cry in that moment, there was already something that must have happened prior to that that had me feel like that was how I respond to that sort of situation.
Yeah.
And so you just imagine for any human being, anyone walking the planet today, whatever has happened to them in their childhood, like is definitely an underlying or like way in which they deal with stuff today. So if that's how I was, and then now fast forward to the future and I'm like, I'm in a club, and there's a girl I want to talk to, and there's other people around, especially guys, am I going to fucking go over
your
and talk?
Emotional brain is just going to relive that moment as a 6-year-old child or whatever how old you are. And it's guys, like it's really worth looking out what your story is when you go and talk to a woman, or you go and you message someone, or whatever it is, you go into a meeting at work. What story do you tell yourself? Like, because there is a story you tell yourself that something's going to happen, something's going to go wrong, they're going to have a certain opinion of you. And spend a little bit of time just to kind of track back through your life and think, when's the first time I remember this happening? Because there'll be an initial moment at school or at home where something happened and you just keep reliving that story again and again. I think I'll get a bit ahead of myself there with the...
Well, no. I mean, this is something you wanted to say, which is around how emotion is based on the belief you hold about yourself and the world.
Yeah. So we have a lot of beliefs, right? And like a lot of the work we've done, like even through some of those kind of self-development and spiritual work we've done, the more I believe that we have not a huge number of beliefs about ourselves and the world, and we hold these to be true. And a lot of our emotions just spring out of those constantly. And then out of those emotions, you get all these thoughts that spring out of those emotions. Like a single emotion can spring millions and millions of thoughts, right? And I'd say that a single belief can spring kind of thousands of emotions. Is there thousands of emotions? There must be.
Feelings, I think you mean.
Feelings. Yeah. Feelings and emotions. I'm a man, I have none. But yeah, like, and we just kind of, we have these beliefs about ourselves, which are completely flawed. They're not how we are or how the world is, but we allow them to, we believe them to be true.
So would you say that, or not would you, but what are some of yours? I see we have some written down here.
Do I?
There's something we've got written next to fear.
Okay. I personally have quite a lot of fear around kind of commitment, and it's been there for many years. It's definitely lesser than it was before. But and for me, it comes a lot from my kind of childhood and then seeing, marriages fall apart with my parents and in terms of my family, and just seeing that marriage doesn't work. And for a long time, especially into my 20s, I saw that relationships don't work. And I just had this whole belief that relationships don't work. And even logically, I had this as a belief, And now into my kind of mid-30s now, at least now I'm conscious of that belief. I know that it's not the way the world is, right? But I also see that it still rears up itself unconsciously. It comes up in my unconscious, and it's just I have to catch it and be like, I see what's going on here. And it plays out in my own life. Maybe that's why I'm single. To all the single ladies out there, I'm single.
Oh yeah,
we'll put my number in the episode notes.
Or you can just message him on the Instagram. I will also read it.
It's quite fun that.
So yeah, but I can definitely resonate with that, and I was just thinking of someone else I spoke to recently who she was asking me about her weight. Like, it was just different to dating, but she felt like she couldn't let go of this whole thing around her, how much she weighed and the amount of weight she put on, even though she followed different regimes. And just through talking, it transpired how when she was young she felt abandoned, and the whole weight thing was partly to do with being seen and being present and having a protection as well as being seen. And it just shows how much, like, Dave's story about the commitment phobia, his family upbringing, this woman here, like how much our childhood, mostly memories we don't even remember. That, and I think this is a very interesting thing that we've discovered as well, is like emotions are largely these memories and decisions that are then captured into emotions. Like they're like computer programs that then your body, like your mind goes, oh, okay, let's play this one. Oh, this is a scenario. So if we just use Dave's example there with the commitment thing, it's like, in that sort of thing, the brain goes, oh, let's play the commitment tape, and it has that emotion and it plays out, and it's like, oh god, like I feel a certain way. But with awareness, it doesn't have to rule your life. It's oh, okay, that's a, and over time, and I know I have mine too, and over time it's like, it actually becomes a bit funny because you can look at it and recognize it and go, ha, okay, yeah, that's the...
I'm doing that thing again.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and it's like there's a book that we'll recommend now, since we're at that point, where I first read about the emotional brain and how that we store all these events in our emotional brain. Is it the amygdala? It's like our reptilian brain that sits at the back of our head. And it stores emotions from the day we're born. Right? It's storing emotions from when we're born completely throughout our lives. But for the first 3 years of our lives, we have no concept of time. And for the first year, babies have no concept of separation between them and their mothers and other human beings. So we store these emotions there, but we don't have the associative memories with them. But we're still, as adults, reacting out of that emotion, but we don't have the memory, which means that we're acting out this emotional ways as adults, but we don't even have like the memory to go, to analyze and look at. We're just kind of acting like fucking babies.
So there is a concept or a notion that emotions, and this is very, very powerful to understand this, emotions are basically like messages from the past that most of us are using to figure out what to do in the present. Yeah. But they're no longer applicable. Like, of everything we just shared with you, and how like me crying in my class, Dave with what he's upbringing, but these are not objective to the current reality that we're in. And when we live with this notion that they are, then that can really fuck us up, because then we get caught in a cycle. It's like it's a pattern, like Groundhog Day. Yeah, it's the same. And this is really, really powerful. It's like when you get this, you realize that the emotions are not the things to be listening to. If anything, they guide you on what will happen before. Yeah, but not necessarily like what's going to happen again. Like to clarify your point a bit, is this like it's a piece of information that was useful in the past, right? That guided you maybe in the past and it was relevant then. For example, maybe you have issues around abandonment now, right, as an adult. And at some point in your past, maybe your parents broke up and one of them left the house, and you, for whatever reason, as a 5-year-old child, believed it was your fault, right? Because you cried or you made mummy angry or something like that, right? So now in your life, what you keep doing is replaying this kind of abandonment. But the emotion that comes up is that same emotion from when you were 5. And you're just using that information there again to act in this present moment. Is that?
Well,
I think I got it.
But yeah, so you listeners, I know that was like clear as bullshit.
Well, it's only tricky because it's a bit like one of those movies where they jump through time and stuff.
Like Memento.
I was actually thinking, what's the other one where they
Inception.
Looper. Have you seen Looper?
No, I've never seen Looper.
Oh, it's a great one. It's a great Bruce Willis and some other guy.
How about Back to the Future? Back to the Future.
Do you know what? I need to watch that again. I haven't seen it for a long time. But essentially, going back to what Dave was saying, I do get it. And I think you're basically putting another angle on what I was saying in regards to, your emotions are impacting your current reality, but they're not actually relevant. and it's really important. I'll give you another very simple take if anyone who didn't understand what Dave was saying or me, and I'll put it this way, right? Like not too long ago, I ordered a pizza from a place. I realize I shouldn't probably say their name because I'll probably get sued or something, but I do have the emails. So I ordered a pizza from this place, and they were just absolutely terrible, like shit. The pizza didn't even turn up. Like literally, pizza didn't even turn up, right?
Oh, wow.
After I called them like numerous times and they told me it was still coming, even though it was late, and now it was going to be free and this and that. No pizza. I had to go to the local shop and buy a fucking oven pizza, and yeah, it was really, really shit pizza evening, and I really wanted pizza. So fast forward, right? So fast forward to another time I'm ordering pizza, and this is like just the other day, and my girlfriend is like, "Oh, we don't have much luck with pizzas." And I said to her, I said, look, it's good. It's fine. That was a different time. This is a different time. And it's another company. It's a different pizza provider. And lo and behold, we didn't have any pizza problems this time.
You got the pizza?
We got the pizza. Yeah, we got the pizza. But so I'm just using that as an example because you see how easy it's, this happened there. Like, I don't want to do that again because we had this problem. But it's not true. And another succinct phrasing is the conditions do not dictate the outcome. And I love using that with parking. Like, when you think it's like it's a Monday or it's a Sunday or there's not going to be no parking, and it's like the conditions do not dictate the outcome. And then I always end up finding a parking because my mind is open to finding it rather than not finding it. A bit like you and the Ritz biscuits earlier. Yeah,
we couldn't find any biscuits, and then we found the biscuits, and we were overjoyed for the biscuits. And we ate every biscuit we could find,
and cheese.
And I will also note that today Ahmad's parking situation didn't work that well for him.
Well, I found parking. I just had to pay a parking ticket. Parking was found. There was a mere charge on the parking.
So, well, I guess we want to go into a couple of other emotions. Like, obviously, we kind of touched upon fear around kind of commitment and stuff. But I guess what we want to say about fear is that it comes up a lot. Fears are there. It's a constant battle you are dealing with the dragon that is fear. It's always going to be, comes up in the morning. Like my constant morning fear is like, you're going to be late to work. Now, I know it sounds like quite a minor concern and fear, but I'm often late to work. But it's like, I see how this fear, I wake up and I'm like, I'm all worried and stressed about it. And, it doesn't have to be that way. I keep doing stupid shit in the morning, which means I'm late. But it's not a rational concern because I have control over this, It's like we have a lot of fears come up that aren't really based in the rational world.
No, I totally agree, because I'd have to say for a long time, there's a period in my life where I'd wake up in the morning and I'd just feel anxious. I'd feel anxious about the day. I'd feel anxious about what I needed to do. There'd be like a sense of overwhelm with regards to things I needed to get done. And then I'd be like, how do other people operate? Like, other people don't seem to be so concerned and worried, and at least not first thing in the fucking morning when, like, just getting up and going, oh fuck, I got things to do. And I tell you what, it partly reminds me of the time when I was back at university, and you've got exams to do, you've got dissertations to get sorted. You just wake up and you fuck, I'm running out of time. Yeah. But life isn't really. I mean, this is a bit of a side note, but life isn't like university constantly or school, where at school there was a constant like, has to be done this day, has to be done. After you leave that school and stuff, life kind of goes, well, get it done. But you don't have, you're not going to like
every day. There's not like a deadline. Yeah,
you're not going to like. Yeah, I don't know. Dying comes to mind, but nothing bad's going to happen to you. Like,
I think that's the thing with fear, isn't it? It's like when you feel fear, it's the feeling is very akin to death, like you're about to die, and that's what it's there for, right? It's to keep you safe. Fear, but it's like when you wake up and your fear is that, say, I don't know, you've got a presentation that day to do at work in front of 40 people and you're afraid of doing it, you're not going to die if it goes badly. Like, you're really not going to die. No one's going to stab you because your presentation didn't go well.
And an interesting thing I just remembered about that as well is that because we now live in a society where we're not going to die on a daily basis. Like back in the day,
there were animals that could eat you.
Yeah, like I'd wake up in fear because I'd be like, I need to get some mangoes from that tree, and there'd be a fucking lion standing under the tree, and I don't know if he'd see me just yet. Yeah, God, can I run away? But now, because we don't have that, we how do they say, like we transplant that fit onto other things, which aren't really death
They're not
things,
big deals.
but the body doesn't know, the mind doesn't know, and it's just like you're gonna die.
So keep you alert. Yeah. And then the next one we've got here is loneliness, actually, and this is like a very apt thing because obviously we do a lot talking about dating, but loneliness is a huge problem I see in the world. And perceived loneliness, like, and I really experienced this as being, you know, when you're single and like all your friends, you know, this is what, you know, some of you listeners might be dealing with as well, is where you're single and you're getting to a certain age and all your friends around you are kind of getting married or having children and stuff like that. And you're single, you feel very isolated. You feel like, oh, I'm the only one that's got nobody. King Ladu, please.
Sorry, what? Don't get my nose King Ladu, bro.
Go on, we'll get into that. But, you know, you pray to God that, you know, someone will save you. And you feel like it's just you know, poor me, I'm all alone, I haven't got anybody. When actually, that's not really how it is, right? The chances are you've got friends, people in your life that love you, but it's because you're comparing yourself to other people and you're comparing yourself negatively on the other side, you know? You're not looking at what you have, you're only looking at what you don't have.
Yeah, and I mean, this one is quite a vast topic, but for anyone who is in that sort of space, one of the things we discussed today as well is like, actually, in our life stage where we're at now, like we're mid-30s, and we're just looking at the people we know from high school, from uni, from wherever, right? Like from wherever in our lives, like there's such a mix. There's some people who are single, some people in relationships, some people married, some people married, divorced. Some, you know, it's just like
some people married with kids, some people married twice and divorced twice, and then some people married once, been divorced and married again. It's like there's a myriad of situations.
It's not easy to really go, oh yeah, it's just me. And but I get it if you're feeling lonely, and I'm not saying that's invalid. I'm saying objectively, when you really look at what's going on around you, you start to realize that and recognize that actually there's a constant flux of like relationship status amongst everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're going to talk about any other emotions. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I think for me, a lot of shame and guilt, especially around just my upbringing and how I choose to live.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a very religious family and I wasn't so religious. And so there was often this feeling of shame and guilt, especially around dating and sex and just going out and pursuing my own volition, whether it was with dating or my own life. And so, yeah, I feel like, again, shame and all these things, for me personally, my personal take on it right now, just off the cuff, would be, it's got a lot more to do with my authority, my personal, like who's in charge. And the older you get, the more you recognize that only one person is in charge, and that's you.
Yeah.
Like you, so you have the say. And I say this, and as I say this, I really do appreciate that there are plenty of people out there who are my age, maybe slightly younger, or even a lot older, who still fall under the remit of like it's not their authority, like someone else is to blame.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this emotion is a very strong one, and it can really keep people playing small in their lives, like just not doing what they really want to be doing, or feeling like it's not acceptable or permissible. And really, in today's society, we're in 2019, where basically anything goes. You know, Trump's president.
Yeah.
So, you know, Kanye will probably be president next.
Yeah.
So anything goes. Literally, you think I'm joking? Like, literally, not you. Dave's just like, yeah. But literally, like,
you can do what you want.
Yeah, like we got Brexit going on. It's like everything goes.
I know, really. I think we live in a world now where, you know, whatever you want to do, you can go and do, you know, like for, you know, within the realms of law and whatnot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But like, you can really choose to express yourself. And if, you know, as a man, if you decide tomorrow you want to be a woman, you can put on women's clothes and go outside. You
don't even have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, you can do it right now. Like, and it's like, there's no one's going to arrest you for it, anything like that. It's like, cool, that's what you want to do. People at work will accommodate you. You can change your name, you can change your sex. Like,
that's actually quite a big thing, because, you know, just, you know, rewind the clock, you know, maybe 10, 20, 30 years, like that would not be.
Actually, like you rewind the clock, like I always think of Alan Turing, right? Because he's in the IT world, he's quite famous. When he saved Britain from annihilation of the Germans, they later found out that he was gay, and because it was illegal, they castrated him. They chemically castrated him.
But didn't they also do like shock treatment? I think I vaguely saw the movie.
Yeah. It's really quite cruel. Well, imagine that's how far we've come in the world, you know, where you can choose to, you know, if you choose to be gay, there's no, you go out and live your life. No one's got a problem with you.
Cool. anything else? I've got frustration. I think it's a bit of a lighter emotion.
Yeah, I feel frustrating. Like, frustration can be, I feel a lot in my work life, my ability to succeed and get to where I want to be, and often feeling that, you feel like I'm not where I want to be. I feel frustrated with where I am now. And, maybe you'll feel frustration with your ability to kind of attract the sort of partner you want. I can definitely say for myself that this has been something that's like frustrated me a lot in my life, and being like, oh, I want a woman like this. I'm trying to date Miley in class and she doesn't want me. It's like, and I feel frustration about it.
So doesn't even know who you are, bro.
I know. I walked past her the other day in the street.
Oh, okay.
And I was really taken, because I had a massive crush on Marlene back in the day.
Well, that was your chance there.
I know. I should have had a word with her. I heard she's pregnant again. So.
Oh, I see. I see.
That could have been awkward.
Approach anxiety.
I had some AA there, so
yeah.
I didn't
I
didn't know what to say. I couldn't find my situational opener.
Yeah. Oh, the old, she's pregnant, so I won't approach. Yeah. That old get out.
That's a fair enough one.
I was having this joke with the other day. I was like, oh, she's got kids and a husband. Oh, yeah, approach anxiety. That's no excuse, man. Don't go in.
Yeah. If this doesn't mean anything to you, approach anxiety, it's just Google it.
It's the feeling, well, if it doesn't mean anything to you, it's the feeling one gets when they see someone they like and then they don't go over and just talk to them. It's that anxiety that they feel. Yeah. But this is just a joke. We're not suggesting you go and talk
to women with husbands
or babies, unless they want to be.
They have signs saying they like to be talked to.
Yeah. So, to round this off then, I think, well, what, just this element on the emotions, like, so how can it be, or how could it be rather for a man? What do you think, Dave, for a man who just has, all of these emotions? What could the world look like?
If you could, if you have the ability to kind of express how you're feeling, like whether they're positive or negative, and, it doesn't, I'm not saying to express, just hold that emotion, and understand it and like be in it. It just allows you to kind of add some color to your life, and it adds a level of connection, and talking to people and conversation just becomes more colorful and interesting. And you start to live from a place of being more self-expressed, because, you can talk to your friends and be like, how are you feeling? And you can ask them and they can ask you, and you actually honestly tell them how you're feeling, and it really creates a connection between two people. And we really love when we speak to people and they're authentic and honest about their emotions and their feelings. It makes a huge difference. So being an emotionally aware man, we could write a book called that. It's a great book. Emotionally aware man, it's just, your life will be more colorful. It won't always be happy and it won't always be great, but what you will have is far more color. It'll be far less bland. It'll be more kind of connected to yourself and those people around you.
I definitely agree, because like, I'm just writing that down, being an emotionally aware man. Book will be coming out 2020, guys.
We'll run a little workshop first. If you're interested, just contact us.
Yeah. So from my own experience, actually, it was a huge shift in becoming more emotionally aware as a man. And it happened in stages, because like I used to be very restrictive in how I express myself. We've covered this a few times on this podcast, how I used to be very stiff.
Episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1.
This is a great episode, by the way.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Because it was the first. But I used to be very, very like closed off and very guarded in how I express myself. And then I came across this term one day, and I didn't really ever understand it fully at the time. It was like, when you're vulnerable or when you're authentic, you become like a mirror so other people can see themselves. And then I was like, that for me was like the holy grail. It was like, oh, what is that thing? I must have this thing. Where can I find it? How can I be it? And I embarked on this journey and went down various different paths to eventually discover my own vulnerability. And what I discovered, though, like in being in this way, in being more relaxed and free with myself and how I express myself and how I feel and what's really going on for me, what was amazing is that other people connect, because the number one thing that connects all human beings, irrespective, like often people look for like commonalities and hobbies, or in food types, or cultural backgrounds. But the number one thing that connects us all as human beings and that we have in common is emotions. Yeah. And so when you can fully express an emotion, you could be talking about something, like I could be talking about skydiving, and someone could never have gone skydiving before. But if I can express how emotionally I felt, I was like going up in the plane, and the vibrations of the engines made me feel a bit like nauseous or worried. And as the airplane got higher and higher, and I can see the land getting smaller and smaller, I was like, oh shit. And the guy's talking to me about, well, so what'd you do for work? And I remembered he'd asked me that earlier, so he must be trying to distract me from my emotions. And I thought, it's not working, motherfucker. Okay, the door, there is no door in the fucking thing. But you see, anyone can relate to that, even if they'd never been in that situation. And this is the thing about it. Like Dave and I have labored this point in this episode, but more from the standpoint of you taking control of your own emotions. But this is where the value is in life, you know, in expressing yourself and connecting with other people. It's huge.
Yeah. So there's one more point I want to add to this, actually, is that it's kind of picking up from what AJ just said, is that when you become more emotionally aware, you find that other people around you open up to you more, right? And this is something I know a lot of guys that we speak to and still speak to now who are struggling with dating, is that they get, you know, you're getting dates, you're meeting up with girls, but what's happening is that you're finding that you go on 1 or 2 dates and it kind of fizzles out. There's no spark. It doesn't go anywhere. And the truth is that probably you're not talking you're not talking emotionally. You're talking from a very functional point of view, right? When you're speaking to women, and women, you know, ladies, you listen to this, comment if you're wrong. Women love emotion. They talk in emotion. You know, if you ever speak to your sisters or your ex-girlfriend, then you find that, you know, sometimes there's men we go into fixing, right? And a woman talks about a problem. It's just because she wants to express how she emotionally feels, and a man just wants to fix. So once you become emotionally aware, you start experiencing your emotions in yourself, and you're able to describe the world in an emotional way. And you'll just have people listen to you and want to spend time with you and want to date you far more than you did before. And because you'll be coming from a place where you will still have fear and worry and loneliness and guilt and shame, but you're accepting and comfortable with having those feelings because there's nothing wrong. And you're able to kind of like hold them in yourself and even and describe them to other people, because you understand that it's totally fine. It's just another emotion. I like that. I really like that point. I just rewind that and come again.
Yeah, really good. So then, right. So let's get to the steps that one can undertake if they, not if they, but like, how can one learn to deal with their emotions in a powerful way that can actually have them be free?
Yeah, and there's, you know, we're not saying, we'll kind of caveat this is just our opinion. You know, I think we should say this in every episode. Everything we say here is our opinions. It's not gospel or how the world is. It's just like what our experience has been, because really all that matters is your own life experience, really. And when it comes down to it, and you realize that everyone has emotions. We're all feeling stuff, right? All of us are feeling stuff, and that's totally okay. It's totally fine. There's going to be good days, going to be bad days. As emotionally aware as we feel we are, we still have days where our emotions completely fucking take us on a ride and journey. Every day. You know, you in the throes of fear and worry and concern, like they all come up, and, you know, sadness. Like, you know, some of these I really feel sometimes. I just sit on my sofa eating ice cream, feeling sad. But I'm totally like cool with just feeling sad sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So then to follow on from that, this is a phrase that we use a lot. And if you haven't realized, you realize it now. And it's vulnerability. And what that means is not avoiding emotions. I mean, vulnerability
is a word,
but it's also like a concept for yourself personally. I'm just thinking, because like, it's not just, because what I've come to realize in my journey, in my life so far, is that, you know, when I have an emotion, often my automatic way of dealing with it is to, like, if especially if it's something that I don't want to be feeling, it's like, oh no, let's just fucking park that. Let's put that in a little box somewhere
and lock it away somewhere.
Yeah. But vulnerability is actually firstly for me is to be able to, for myself, go, hang on, let me go in. Let me just experience this and see what comes, how, you know, what's there, what is behind this. You know, before it's, because we often talk about vulnerability from the point of view of expression, of telling other people about how we're feeling. But no, in this case, it's about not avoiding the emotions, even for ourselves. If I'm angry, I'm angry. Not placate, I can't say it with the word. Placate, not placate the emotion. But same for sadness or frustration and these things. It's just, so very simply, to allow the emotion to arise.
Don't deny the feeling.
Yeah, don't deny it, allow it to arise.
Yeah. Just like have it. It's okay to have that feeling.
Don't deny the feeling.
And then we also felt like there was, when it comes to a big problem with a lot of emotions, is we feel embarrassed about them. Like there's something that's wrong and bad about them. Like, this kind of ties into the point about how, we are, especially in some of the kind of self-help, spiritual parts of kind of learnings and whatnot. Like, one should always be happy, focus on the positives, and all that. And it's like, you don't even want to express when you feel negatively, because, you shouldn't be feeling negative things, because your life is great and everything's wonderful. But, sometimes you're going to feel shit about things, right? And that's totally fine too. But just hiding away those emotions isn't going to make them go away, right? So there's not feeling embarrassed about expressing them, because you'll find that if you start to express these emotions with people, or even just within yourself, and when we say within yourself, it's just saying, I feel sad today. Okay, cool. I feel sad. And not kind of being like, I feel sad. Oh, let me feel happy because I should feel happy. It's like just accepting you feel sad and being okay with that. And, maybe you even communicate to someone. But in communicating with somebody that you feel sad, you've kind of, it's a big show of strength that you're willing to kind of have those emotions and talk about them. And there's nothing embarrassing about having them.
Yeah. I'm just thinking as well, like, because there is an important thing to say here as well in regards to when you express emotions. Because some people like to just offload, right? And that's I'm definitely not advocating that at all, because it's a bit like opening the floodgates and just, unless it's a hugely, something really, really bad has happened and you can't help it, right? But not to be that person that's
there's vomiting emotion at people.
And so what my perspective on this is like learning to acknowledge, and we've expressed a few different things here to begin with about how emotions are actually quite normal and that we all go through stuff. And it's like Dave said, it's a very powerful thing and you can connect with other people. But you see, that only really occurs when you're able to accept it. You're able to accept the emotion as a normal thing. And then then there's no shame. Then there's no poor me aspect of it. There's just this is how I'm feeling. There's nothing more to it. And I think that's a really important message, because there's a difference. And sure, I get it. Some people have trouble with accepting their emotions.
I surely do.
Yeah, like acknowledging it. And in some cases, it's like where it's overwhelming or consistently overwhelming, seeking some sort of advice or counsel, professional counsel is heavily advisable.
Yeah.
But then, every day, like the ability to just actually, we wrote down meditation here, right? But like as a point of like what one can do. And where I see meditation being used for is twofold, but the main thing is observing, like being able to observe your emotions, being able to, without reacting.
Yeah.
And so you can experience what's going on, maybe even derive like why it's happening, and actually not be so attached to it, like to the emotion, or be sucked into the emotion, because emotions, when you do get sucked in, they will then define how you're seeing everything, the people you're with, or the situation you're in. So yeah, that's just something I want to say there.
Cool. So one of the other things we've got here is about dealing with emotion is getting perspective, is gaining perspective, because I think often we feel something personally, it might be a rejection, right? You've been dating someone and then they break up with you, and you're dealing with that breakup and rejection, and you just kind of keep the emotion to yourself about it. And you're just spinning the story in your own head, making the story worse and worse. Your judgments about yourself, shook man, your inner voice, which we did a much longer episode about in episode 2. That voice in the head that's telling you about yourself and how the rejection's all your fault, the breakup, what you did wrong. But when you start talking to someone else about this and go, okay, is there something going on for me? Like, you go to a friend, like I would call up AJ and be like, oh man, like, been on a couple of dates with this girl and it's not really gone that well. She feels like, it's not really going anywhere. And I feel really upset, and I feel like really rejected. And we have a conversation, and he may go, yeah, I totally understand. I get that. And then it might just be a few words that he says, because people will give you perspective. Like, they might say to you, well, what about the other 3 girls you're dating? And you're like, yeah, but I don't want those ones. Or, it's like, well, actually, there was that girl last year who, and the same thing happened, and look at you now, you're fine. You're not bothered about it, right? It's like perspective that you'll get over it, and that these emotions will pass. These events will become small and insignificant at some point in your life. And that makes a huge difference. And I'd say, like, personally for me, I had an experience of gaining very large perspective on my life about 3 and a bit years ago, where I was feeling really unhappy with like how life in London was for me. I was feeling unhappy in my job and just, feeling just a bit grumpy about life, and I had everything in a very good way. I had my own lovely place I lived in, I had good jobs, blah, blah, blah. And so I packed up my bags and went traveling, and that gave me a massive, massive amount of perspective on my own life. When you start going, I started off in India, and I always remember going to this guy's house. He was a waiter in central India, and his family were all farmers, and we went to his farm, and he was just like he looked after us like amazingly. His nan was making chapatis, he was like getting us tea, and then he got his mate over to cook us curry in one of the like mud shacks at the back. And it really dawned on me, I was like, this man doesn't have anything compared to what I have. He's got this land here with these shares of his. There was like 13 people that lived on this land, grandparents, everything, no real privacy, and he's so happy with his life, and I'm at home with my lovely plush flat in London, with my good job where I have great friends and I can go and do what I want, with my life, and I'm feeling like fuck my life shit. And I was just like, how backwards have I got my whole fucking life? And that's the sort of perspective that I really gained from traveling. And I continue to travel on and see this same thing occur in many different countries, and it's given me like immense like perspective on my own life.
No, good. No, I really get it. I really do. And again, that's the kind of thing that only comes from being aware, when you can open, because some people just get so locked into their personal view of how the world is.
And it's very easy, even being back in London now, I feel like I'm slowly moving back into that same place again. And I have to remind myself and do things like meditation and so forth, just to give myself some perspective on how I'm feeling and what's going on.
Yeah, and I think, with those things, again, like it's a large part to society thinking. I think we mentioned earlier about comparisons and all that stuff.
And how you should be a certain way, you should be in a certain position.
Yeah. And that really comes in. So before we go on to the recommendations, just to recap, I think we've covered everything we wanted to say. So we got a couple of recommendations for you, but before we do that, just to recap everything. So, this episode has been about men and emotions by and large. There's a high view of it. And, why men often don't talk about their emotions, and really making a point here that it's not personal. It's actually something that's quite society based, and to recognize that, and in recognizing it's a very societal problem, you can then just own it and start to move forward. And we specifically would discuss which emotions like fear, guilt, shame, anger, sadness, and frustration, and how, these are the sort of emotions we're often so embarrassed that we don't want to share. And yet these are the same things that can really connect us to other people.
Yeah.
When you share fear, when you share how you really feel, people open up because they feel safe.
Yeah.
If you can say it, I can say
you create a safe space with people where you admit to not being perfect.
Yeah.
And that allows them to also admit that they're not perfect.
Yeah. And so then what we were saying about all of this stuff is, how could a man be? And we're not saying we're perfect, but we do feel by and large in the conversations we have with people and messages we receive and questions that people have for us, it's like, wow, we are very fortunate that for whatever reason, life has led us down a path of developing a high sense of emotional awareness for ourselves. And it's a really crucial factor in society. And so, how a man could be very free and open and expressive, and how that builds connections. And then we've given you guys some practical steps that you can do. First and foremost, context, understanding that, humans have emotions every day. We all have a wide range, and that, to be vulnerable, firstly with yourself, allowing emotions to come up and experiencing them, and then also to communicate vulnerably, and speak to people around, not just have things in your head, and having a one perspective view of it. And then finally, meditation and, building up a practice where, you know, you can really allow you to observe your emotions and not get caught up with it. So before you go, just grab a pen and write down these recommendations that we've got for you, because so there's a couple of books and there's a couple of exercises, and these books are, I think, for both of us, for Dave and I, they've been amazing reads in regards to dealing with emotions at a very, very high level. The first one is called Letting Go. That's just simply letting go. You have the guy's name?
It's Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by David R. Hawkins.
Okay, yeah, there you go. And then, Dave, this is one of your recommendations.
This is one of my favorite books. I think I actually read this twice, actually. Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goldman. It's an incredible book, and it will take you through a journey of where your emotions start, like where they come from in the brain, or the science behind it, but equally how they and why they arise in certain ways, and they make you feel certain ways. It just gives you, it's just something that, like, it just gave me so much understanding of my own emotions and feelings and how they were coming up and what they were doing to me from a physical and mental point of view. Amazing.
Yeah, so these books will definitely give you a wider view and more tips, more exercises inside the books, and a perspective for life. And then, in addition, I mean, because reading is great, but I think action is really important. And so, in addition, like, highly recommend taking up a practice of self-awareness, like meditation. There's a lot of resources online. There's different types of meditation. You can do it at home. Highly recommend you also go find some sort of group that you can meditate in.
Yeah.
Another thing that Dave, in fact, did first and then introduced me to is called something called breath work. And it's similar to like a meditation vibe. And what's really cool was where the place that Dave found, it was actually a men's circle, and it was, you know, it was for men to express their emotions inside of this thing. And it's just all men.
Yeah.
It was led by a woman, but it's all men. It's a very safe space. And again, a great way to connect with other men and to just speak and experience what it is to be a man in today's society. Finally, just simply, I mean, I put this down, it may sound inane, but really it's so powerful. Go for a walk, you know, really spend time in nature and get out of whatever, we're moving beings. We're meant to move, and so often we get very stagnant and in our thoughts and our minds when we just stay in one place. So if ever you are having like major issues with your emotions and how you're feeling, to just get up and move and get out of the space and see, you know, how it shifts.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's us today. We've got some book recommendations. We've got some exercises. If you're interested in the breath work and you want more details, just ping us a message and we'll let you know. Especially if you're in London, we'll be able to tell you, point you in the right direction of something. I don't know where else you can find it. I know Bali and places like that, but if you're London-based
really
listener, we can really introduce you to it. That was really beautiful and amazing for myself when I did it. So yeah, I think that's everything for today.
Cool.
And obviously, actually, no, that's not everything today. Don't stop. Yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram. That's Authentic Dating Series. And also we have a website. If you can ping us there as well. That's Authentic Dating, www.authenticdatingseries.com. I never get it right, do I? And where else? You can get us on Twitter. Could even find us on Reddit if you fancy. I've been like talking to people and answering questions on Reddit. It's quite an interesting platform. Yeah, and I think that's it, right?
Cool, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.